Hi everyone, just going to create a little tutorial here on how to calculate some descriptive statistics in Microsoft Excel. So this is Microsoft Excel here. This is the desktop version. You might have access or be familiar with the web version, which works just okay, but I would recommend trying to download the desktop version because that's going to be in line with some of the tutorials that I complete, and it has a bit better functionality in my opinion. So try and get the desktop version, and then once you're at that point, then you can follow along and do exactly what I do to calculate descriptive statistics. Okay, so what we have here is the data that's on the canvas. This is a previous class that I had, and we recorded our hand grip strength on 3 occasions: attempt 1, attempt 2, and attempt 3. Now I'm going to want to calculate some of the descriptive statistics of this data set. So I want to describe what is the strength level of my previous capstone class. And if we ever want to calculate descriptive statistics in Microsoft Excel, the cleanest way to do this is to use the formula function in Microsoft Excel. So to do the formula function, we're going to click on any blank cell where we want to do a calculation, and I'm just going to simply type in equals. So if you ever want to do a formula, you need to start with the symbol equals. That indicates to Microsoft Excel that, hey, I want to do a calculation here. So one of the first things that I'm going to get is the average or the mean, because that is our main descriptive statistic for central tendency. So to get the average or mean in Microsoft Excel, we need to do equals and then type in average. And you'll see that when you start to type in a formula, it gives you a bunch of suggestions on this drop down. Or you can type in yourself. Here, if I click on one of the formulas, it describes what it is. So it returns the average, the arithmetic mean. So I'm going to double click on that, and you see it's going to open up a parentheses. And when it does that, it's going to want me to highlight all of the numbers that I want to select for calculating the average. So to do that, you can see that my crosshair has changed into this white cross now. If I click and drag and hold with my left mouse button, I can then highlight all the cells that I want to calculate the average of. So in this example here, I want to calculate what is the average of the 3 hand grip strength attempts for my participant Brett here. I'm going to simply then hit enter or the return key on my keyboard, and it's going to calculate the average or mean there. I would then do this for each participant, each person, to then get what their average of the 3 hand grip attempts was. But you can imagine this is going to take quite a while if we do it for each individual person. So I don't want to then go through the whole process again of typing in average and highlighting the cells. So a nice little handy trick that you can do in Microsoft Excel is if you click on the formula that you just specified and come down to the bottom right, you can see there's a little green square there. And you can see that when I highlight that little green square with my mouse, that we get a crosshair that goes black. That is the copy formula icon. So if I click and hold my left mouse button again, I can then copy this formula down. And what it'll essentially do is repeat what I did for calculating the average for Brett for then all of the individual class members. As you can see, it's calculated the average for everyone else. I'm going to then highlight all of my data, and this is not something essential that you need to do, but it helps with interpreting your numbers. So if I highlight all my numbers and then come up to the top here where it says decrease decimal, I can then decrease it to 1 decimal place, which you may have to do for the quiz. If you do it too much, you only report it as whole numbers, then you can press the button next to it to increase the decimal. So then now I've got the mean of the 3 hand grip attempts for each person in the class. But now what I might want to do is calculate what the mean is for the whole class together. So in this case, I'll do equals average again. Double click that to finish it. Highlight all the means of each person. So now I'm calculating the mean of the sample of participants or class members. I'll hit enter. And you can see now that the mean hand grip strength in kilos of the class was 49.4 kilograms. I could then also do this for the median. So if I type in median, Excel has a formula as well, so I can then calculate the median there. And I'm just going to drag that across so it's nicely displayed there. I've got the median. I could also do the mode, but in this case it's not going to work very well because mode as a measure of central tendency doesn't work very well for numerical data. So I'm going to delete this median, and what I then want to do is calculate the standard deviation. The standard deviation. So this is going to be our measure of dispersion. This one takes a little bit more thought to do, but it's essentially the same principle of going equals, and then to calculate standard deviation I'm going to go STD. And you can see we've got a bunch of different formulas here that we can choose from, and some of them will give you a slightly different answer. But for the purpose of this, for calculating the standard deviation of the sample, we want to select this one here, the one that's just STDEV. So double click that, and then highlight all of my data points, and then hit enter. And we can see I've got the standard deviation now. So there, the descriptive statistics. 49.4 kilos is the mean, with a standard deviation of the sample of 10.4 kilos. I can then calculate the minimum, and you might get the gist of this now, of how to do it. I would then go equals minimum, which in this case is just min. Highlight all that. And now that will show me the data in the sample that had the lowest value. So 34.3, we can see that was Bella here. And it's the same principle with the max. So I do equals max and highlight the sample to include all the sample data. The max is 64.8, which was CAM. So it's a very easy way of me finding the minimum and maximum automatically in Excel. And that will be really handy if you had very large data sets, such as hundreds to thousands of data points. Then I can finally calculate the range. So if you go here and type in range, then it's not going to give you the specific range calculation. So we need to do an extra step here. So to calculate the range, that's simply the minimum subtracted from the maximum here. So I'll do equals, I'll click on a cell, and now I want to say, okay, take F20 and subtract, if I do the dash symbol, subtract 34.3 away from 64.8. That's what I've denoted in this formula here. Now I'll hit enter, and that's given me the range there. So you can see I've calculated a bunch of descriptive statistics there using the formula method in Microsoft Excel. And it will take some practice about learning what the specific formulas are and how to go about highlighting and clicking the cells. But you can also use this part up here as well to then go through it a slightly different way. But I find that that's a bit more clunky. The way I just showed you is the way that I would recommend. And if you can do that on the data set for the quiz this week, then you're in pretty good shape for some of the questions. Okay, so I hope that was informative, and I'll see you in the next one.